building very different from an actual Z&E building once it's occupied and in operation. You'll also note that a building does not need to be all electric to meet this definition. Natural gas and propane are accounted for in the time-dependent variable calculation for energy use. I should also note that the Energy Commission is currently exploring the possibility of allowing for community renewable energy to substitute for on-site renewable energy for buildings that can't accommodate on-site renewables. So this is definitely a definition that's being discussed in the energy community, and one that we could see adapt over time as we get closer to our Z&E goals and we look more at what is Z&E code and what do we need to do to help buildings meet it. Here's a depiction of use rates in San Diego's climate zones based on time of day and season. You'll see that energy doesn't have the same value throughout the day, but actually changes in its value at different times of the year and at different times of the day. So what are California's Z&E goals? The first is that all new residential construction will be Z&E by 2020. That is, as we've mentioned, in just 5 short years. Also, all new and 50% of existing state-owned public buildings will be Z&E by 2025. And finally, all new and 50% of existing commercial buildings, which are our largest footprint for energy usage, will be Z&E by 2030. These goals are on a short horizon, and our state building codes, Title 24, Part 6, and appliance standards, Title 20, are the primary regulatory mechanisms for achieving these goals. However, it's important that local jurisdictions help identify ways that they can prepare for these goals and help lead the market so that their constituents are ready to build buildings and of course, to retrofit buildings to meet these goals. With that, we introduced the Z&E roadmap for local governments. As I mentioned before, we've created updates for this roadmap, and it's now available at energycenter.org/Z&E. We'll provide this link again at the end. And the roadmap provides a number of different steps that local governments can take to prepare themselves, as well as to work with their constituents and stakeholders in their area to prepare them for the coming Z&E goals. Outside of California, we think this roadmap is applicable to a broad range of local governments interested in taking leadership on Z&E and helping spur market innovation towards Z&E in their areas. So I'll now go through the individual steps on the roadmap for Z&E for local governments. First of which, to officially adopt Z&E goals. You'll hear a bit more about this from one of our panelists today, the City of Lancaster. The second step, to create a Z&E task force. This is a way to engage with local stakeholders. Third, enact reach codes or local ordinances that exceed Title 24, Part 6. Fourth, and we'll hear a bit more about this from the County of Santa Barbara panelists joining us today, transform municipal buildings into Z&E buildings. This is a way to lead by example and help show stakeholders and as well as constituents that Z&E is possible and begin to transform perceptions around Z&E buildings, starting with municipal buildings. 5, streamline permitting and interconnection for energy efficiency and renewable energy. 6, establish benchmarking and disclosure policies. It's an old standard, I think, for those of us who work in energy efficiency, that you cannot measure what you do not manage. And understanding what it will take to get to Z&E requires having an understanding and a foundation of what your energy usage looks like today. 7, incentivize construction that exceeds Title 24, Part 6. 8, enact PACE or other financing programs for commercial buildings. And 9, provide Z&E education and outreach to industry stakeholders. We'll hear a bit more about some innovative models for providing a Z&E education outreach from the City of Chula Vista joining us for today's webinar. And with that, I am happy to introduce the first of our three panelists joining us for today's webinar. We have Barbara Boswell, the Director of Lancaster Choice Energy, joining us to speak about Lancaster's Z&E goals and supporting policies. Thanks so much for joining us, Barbara. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I am Barbara Boswell, the Director of Lancaster Choice Energy, and we're very excited about the programs that we have going and initiatives in support of achieving our net zero energy goals. Our Mayor, RX Paris, and City Council set the vision and the goals to become the first zero net energy city and the alternative energy capital of the world. This goal is being measured by producing or procuring more renewable energy than is consumed within city limits. Our goal has been broken into two phases. Phase 1 is a peak load of 215 megawatts, which we've achieved nearly 60% of that goal as of April. And Phase 2 would be our total load of approximately 530 megawatts. Next slide. In support of achieving our goals, Lancaster has initiated a number of programs and initiatives, and I'll go into more detail on each of these. Next slide. The city has installed 1.45 megawatts of solar on city facilities, and we also partnered with the school districts, installing 7.5 megawatts of solar on 25 school sites. The city facilities saved approximately $50,000 in electric expenses in the first year of operation. The school districts were able to save about $420,000 in their first year of operation, so it certainly has been a good program for them. Next slide. We have a significant amount of utility-scale solar development within the city limits. We have 77 megawatts operational and another 128 megawatts of development approved and awaiting construction. We have a business-friendly environment. Our permitting process takes approximately 3 to 4 months, which is substantially shorter than our neighboring jurisdictions. And we consistently have solar developers that come to Lancaster due to the ease of our process. Next slide. We have partnered with KB Home and BYD to build the home of the future. This home is a very high water and energy efficiency home. It is estimated to reduce the annual utility expenses by about $4,500. The city has also updated our residential zoning code to include a solar requirement. Every new house built must have an average 1 kilowatt of self-generated power per home built, and this was effective January 1st, 2014. And we currently have approximately 3,000 homes that have solar, and we have about 56,000 homes citywide. Next slide. We also participate in a number of different PACE programs. PACE is an alternative way to finance energy-efficient upgrades in a home. Residential and commercial property owners in Lancaster can finance up to 100% of their energy efficiency and renewable energy projects and pay it back over time as a property tax assessment through their existing property tax bill. We participate in 3 different programs: Big Tree Financial, California First, and the California Hero Program. Next slide. Our most recent initiative is our Better Built Home program. This is a voluntary program to incentivize builders to build with more energy efficient features, both for electricity and water. We worked with the Building Industry Association and local builders to develop this program, and builders can receive an incentive between $9,000 and $12,000 per home by achieving certain milestones within this program. We also have the SASH program, Single Family Affordable Solar Homes. This is a ratepayer-funded program through the California Public Utilities Commission that provides upfront rebates to help low-income homeowners access the benefits of solar power. Lancaster has almost 20 participants in this program. Next slide. With all of these programs, we realized we were not going to be able to achieve our goal of being a zero net energy city. And our next step was to implement community choice aggregation. This will be the catalyst to move us to our goal. In 2002, Assembly Bill 117 was passed that allowed agencies to aggregate the power demand in their city and procure the power on behalf of those customers. This is an opt-out program, meaning that Lancaster Choice Energy becomes the default provider for all of the customers within the city unless that customer takes an action to opt out. We're the first in Southern California territory and the third in the state. Community choice aggregation provides a number of benefits, including local control. Our rates are set by the City Council. Our rates are lower. We're set lower than Southern California Edison, and the rates in both the other two community choice aggregation programs in Northern California are also lower than PG&E, and we have a greener product. We also have the opportunity to provide some local economic development programs and also to work with developers for constructing local solar. Next slide. This is a depiction of how community choice aggregation works. So Lancaster Choice Energy is the portion on the left. We will buy and build cleaner energy supply, and that energy will then go out onto the grid. It will be delivered by Southern California Edison. We will not own any infrastructure. We won't have to maintain or repair any lines or any generating facilities. That's all owned by Edison. Edison then delivers that power to the end user, to our customers. Edison will also continue to do the job of the billing. So customers will receive one bill, so it really is invisible to the customer with the exception of saving a little bit of money on their monthly utility bill. Next slide. We offer two products. Our default power supply is a 35% renewable product. Currently, Edison offers a 22% renewable product. We also offer a 100% renewable product that customers can opt up to. For residents, it's a $10 per month flat fee, so it's very easy for customers to evaluate how opting up to 100% renewable will impact their budget. It also makes it very easy for them to compare opting up with Lancaster Choice Energy as opposed to installing their own solar facilities on their property. Our goal over time is to increase our base energy supply and moving off 35% to one day in the future, hopefully all of our power that we sell is 100% renewable. We're also in the process of evaluating proposals to purchase locally generated solar and bring that into our portfolio. We have a number, next slide. We have a number of programs that are in the implementation phase or pilot phase. One has to do with energy storage. We have the first battery storage system. Our first battery storage system has been installed in the high desert. And it's a battery that holds 30 kilowatts. It was funded by the California Energy Commission grant, and the system was installed by a private partner, Green Charge Networks, at no cost to the city. This project will generate an estimated $3,200 annually in cost savings through peak shaving. The battery stores the energy, and then the building draws from the battery first during peak energy time. It also includes an electric vehicle charging station, a Nissan DC fast charger. It is also the first of its kind in the high desert. EV station charges compatible cars to 80% capacity in approximately 20 minutes. Next slide. We're also in the process of acquiring our street lights from Southern California Edison. Currently, Edison owns 18,000 of our street lights. We own about 1,800. And we're in the process of reacquiring or acquiring those from Southern California Edison. It is currently with the California Public Utilities Commission for approval. Once we own those street lights, we then have the ability to convert them into LED or do other types of energy efficiency programs using the streets. We're currently converting the lights that we currently own through our regular replacement program with those street lights. Last slide. Next slide. So in summary, achieving zero net energy has many different legs. You need the leadership at the top that supports creativity and be business-minded. You need to have developer-friendly permitting process. You need ordinances that support your goals. And then you can't achieve it without, we believe you can't achieve it without community choice aggregation, and that really is going to be the catalyst to drive agencies to zero net energy. All of these work together will get us to our goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That was a fantastic presentation. As you said, Lancaster has strong goals and that leadership from the top to become the first Z&E city. And through your presentation, you showed how you were implementing many of the different strategies discussed in the Z&E roadmap for local governments, as well as the addition of community choice aggregation. There's a lot to discuss from your presentation and many, many best practices to share. So I'll look forward to our discussion during the Q&A. We'll now do our poll question number 3 before I introduce our next panelist. You'll see it come up on your screen shortly. The question is, does your jurisdiction have any goals specifically related to Z&E buildings? Take about 30 seconds. You'll see the results. We've got a number of attendees that say, yes, you do, which is exciting. I'll be encouraged to hear a little bit more about your Z&E goals, so please feel free to submit those via the chat window during the Q&A. And also really encouraged to see such high numbers for folks joining us who are considering them or who are potentially stakeholders in an effort to try to secure Z&E goals in your area. And we hope that the roadmap, as well as the case studies from today's panelists, can be useful as you seek to implement Z&E goals. So next, I'm happy to introduce Roy Hateman, the Energy Manager with Santa Barbara County. Roy will be speaking to us about how the County of Santa Barbara got to a Z&E resolution. And I think we'll speak to many of you joining the webinar today about the value of Z&E goals and what it takes to get them in place. So thank you so much, Roy.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully this presentation will give you ideas on how to get your agency closer to Z&E. Some agencies have a lot of money to go Z&E. Some officials have the power to go Z&E. The rest of us have little or no money, so this may be your path to Z&E. To go Z&E, we need to stop our buildings from bleeding energy everywhere. Who is causing our buildings to bleed energy? We all are, all of us. Next slide. Building architects. Architects have made great strides to make beautiful buildings. To set themselves apart, they are making beautiful Z&E buildings. Any architect can make a beautiful building, but only great architects can make them Z&E. Below average architects make a beautiful building with poor energy consumption and then pass the problems on to facilities maintenance. Facilities maintenance then goes around pulling out halogen bulbs, putting in LEDs, adding insulation, and correcting other problems caused by the architect. For your next project, ask your architect to educate you on how to go Z&E. Next slide. County staff, they do stuff like this. Put in halogen heat lamps to heat up artwork because they don't know enough about LEDs. Sometimes departments do things on their own and don't tell facilities. I once found an air conditioner, a window air conditioner, on the interior wall of a building. Guess what? The room got really hot. They don't know how air conditioning works. stop thinking you're a maintenance worker and call facilities. Let them do that stuff. Facilities maintenance just runs around from problem to problem trying to keep up. Lastly, the government system. California has thousands of elected and department heads. They are experts in their area, but need more education on Z&E. They get funding to do remodels and new buildings. Next slide. No, we're still here. But they concentrate on construction and their personal agenda. So their facilities maintenance sometimes gets dumped on again with another, so sometimes facility maintenance gets dumped on again with another bleeding building. Because little thought was given to the building's energy consumption when the building was designed. So how do we fix this? How do we stop your buildings from bleeding energy? Next slide. You change the law. You educate everyone on Z&E. Change the law governing how your agency operates and educate them on Z&E. This will take time, but it's worth it. This is how you stop your buildings from bleeding energy. The law will force your agency to truly look at its building energy consumption. Z&E education will inspire the people in your agency to look at their building's energy consumption. How do you change the law and educate the people in your agency about Z&E? You will need to take these steps. You may even skip some of these steps. This is what the County of Santa Barbara is doing. Try it, or a portion of it, to make your change to go Z&E. We did not use general fund money to make these changes. We used an SCE grant. We were inspired by NBI and the state Z&E resolution. See the NBI link at the bottom of this slide. Next slide. Benchmark your buildings on the EPA website. You can link your energy management software to it, or have your utility company send its data directly to the EPA's website. This website allows you to compare your buildings with national standards. We use the Buildings Energy Star score to find our poor performing buildings. There is a link to the EPA's Portfolio Manager site at the bottom of this slide. Next slide. The big thing here is we are trying to get each department aware of their energy consumption. We acquired a utility management web program for all county employees to see. Each county employee can see every utility bill on every building. There's no hiding anything here. This shows which departments are doing their part and which departments need help. We put in some sub-meters where needed. All these utility bills get aggregated up to a county-wide level. Now every employee, official, and all county employees can see the county's overall electric, gas, water, trash consumption, and GHG emissions data updated daily. For example, the County of Santa Barbara has cut its water consumption over 26% in the last 12 months. There's a lot of utility management software packages out there. Pick one. Start measuring your energy consumption today. Next slide. Z&E is a group effort. We do have some ultra-efficient buildings like our EOC. It uses passive solar and solar PV, has great insulation, and even has permeable concrete that'll let the rainwater soak back into the ground. We have some solar arrays, but the big thing is we are trying to get each department aware of their energy consumption. We now have departments doing their part, no matter how small, to cut back on utilities. Departments are telecommuting, requesting LED lights, cutting back on water, and tracking their utilities use online. You can click on the link at the bottom of this slide and see live data on these solar arrays. Next slide. This is the County of Santa Barbara's Z&E resolution. It is nearly the same as the state, except for the last line. that addresses existing government buildings. People with goals succeed because they know where they're going. Click on the link below and you can see all the details of the resolution that went to the Board of Supervisors. Next slide. My opinion, the government should lead by example. I'm personally Z&E at my house 9 months of the year. I have solar and it's a great feeling. I think once a few governments go Z&E, this will show the world that you can do it too. Do you have solar on your house? If not, lead by example. Get solar. If you have solar, tell others and get your government to go Z&E. If you work for the government, you know the inside track to making policy changes. Make a change, even a small one. Go Z&E. A famous quote by John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, become more, you are a leader. I'm doing my part. Are you doing yours? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roy. That was a fantastic presentation. I think you really spoke to some great examples of how local governments can set Z&E goals, lead by example by retrofitting and really pushing for Z&E for local government buildings, as well as benchmarking, understanding your energy use as a baseline and really working from there. I think these strategies that the County of Santa Barbara are implementing are applicable not just to local governments of all sizes in California, but really across the country, and would encourage folks who are interested in approaching Z&E with fewer resources or potentially smaller local governments to look at the County of Santa Barbara case study for inspiration. I'm now happy to introduce our third panelist, Janet Cluth, Senior Project Coordinator with the City of Chula Vista, will be joining us. Excuse me, Janice, that was my error. Janice, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more about Chula Vista's Sustainable Communities program.
Okay, good morning everyone, and thanks for the introduction. Today I'm going to tell you about the City of Chula Vista's Sustainable Communities program. I will cover the program's history, how it's funded, and some of the tools that we've used to help educate our development community and staff on energy efficiency and green building standards. Next slide. Our goals for the Sustainable Communities program are to provide resources to our stakeholders, promote sustainable construction, and improve code compliance to help our city move towards zero net energy buildings. Next slide. Chula Vista has been a leader in sustainability for several decades, starting with the first climate action plan in 2000. We've received many awards for our efforts, including the Climate Leadership Award in 2014, the Beacon Spotlight Award, and the Energy Showcase Award in 2012 and 14. We've been supported in our efforts by a local government partnership with SDG&E, which started in 2006. Next slide. The funding for the local government partnership comes from California utility ratepayers through SDG&E. That's San Diego Gas and Electric. The City of Chula Vista has used these funds to promote sustainability with upgraded and more energy efficient HVAC systems on our municipal campus, LED streetlights throughout the city, and outreach and education to homes and businesses, to name a few. Next slide. The Sustainable Communities program is just one element of the larger partnership with SDG&E. This program focuses on educating our stakeholders, which includes architects, designers, property owners, contractors, city review staff, and more recently, review staff from other local jurisdictions. In the last year and a half, two significant changes have taken place to move us towards Z&E. The Cal Green Building Code was adopted in January 2014, and the Energy Code was adopted in July. The city responded by holding 15 workshops, focusing primarily on Cal Green and the new Energy Code. Received changes in the codes we reviewed changes in the codes, prepared checklists and correction lists, and reviewed sample plans. The feedback and attendance at these workshops was good, and the need for training continues. So this year we developed a series on zero net energy, covering topics such as processing of energy permits, solar water heating, solar photovoltaic, electric vehicle charging, and energy storage. Next slide. The city also hired a code coach who is available one day each week at the Development Services front counter to provide guidance to staff and Development Services customers on energy code and green building code compliance. Finally, we are improving communication with our customers and access to sustainable tools by revamping our website. Please check it out at www.chulavistaca.gov. Search Build Green and see updated and enhanced links to resources, permits, compliance forms, checklists, and guides. Next slide. As we move forward, we continue to explore new ways to move closer to zero net energy goals and make our community more sustainable.
Thank you so much, Janice. City of Chula Vista has been a long-time leader in the San Diego area on these efforts, with previously having stretch codes before the latest code cycle. And we certainly see the Energy Code Coach as a great best practice, as you mentioned, that can be implemented by other cities to improve code compliance and really engage directly with industry stakeholders as our codes get more and more aggressive leading up towards these Z&E goals. So thank you so much for your presentation and information that folks can find in the Chula Vista case study. At this time, we'll go ahead and do poll number 4 before we transition over to our Q&A. The poll number 4 question is, does your jurisdiction conduct education and outreach to help stakeholders comply with the energy code and or go beyond code? Again, we'll take about 30 seconds. Thanks so much, everybody, for participating in our polls during today's webinar. We've got a fair number of yeses and a fair amount of no's and folks that are seeking to implement. So we hope, of course, that the Z&E roadmap can be a timely resource for those of you seeking to implement this type of stakeholder outreach and education. And for those of you that are engaging directly with your industry with educational resources and outreach, we'd love to hear about those efforts. Which leads me to share my contact information. Again, my name is Hannah Green. This is my email. I encourage you to follow up with me to share any success stories and leadership in your area related to Z&E. Also, Laura Parsons, our building performance technical expert, has really done a lot of this work for us on Z&E buildings, and her address is listed here as well. We want to let folks know about a Z&E Action Plan workshop for new residential construction that will be held at the California Public Utilities Commission in San Francisco on June 9th. Please contact Mindy Craig at Blue Point Planning if you have any questions or want to learn more about that workshop. With the goals and those horizons, those goals coming up in 2020, this is a really important time to be engaged if you are a stakeholder in California for Z&E buildings. And finally, on this resources page, we want to let folks know about case studies and the communications toolkit available from the New Buildings Institute. Their website is linked here below. Finally, we ask that you fill out one more questionnaire for us. There will be a 60-second survey that will pop up when you exit the webinar after our Q&A session. It will also be emailed out at the end of the webinar. we would really appreciate your feedback on this quick survey to tell us what references you're interested in to help you move forward on Z&E goals and action. And also let us know what you'd like to hear about in a future webinar. We hope to continue this discussion going and really to create resources that are going to be most useful for those of you joining us today, as well as your colleagues in this space. So let us know. We'll now transition over to the Q&A session. We've put up information from all of our panelists here today and encourage you to submit questions that they could address individually or that we can take across the group. So please remember that all lines are on mute. So we ask that you write your questions in to the GoToWebinar pop-up box. And we'll go ahead and start pulling those questions. And we're going to unmute our panelists right now. So panelists, your lines are going to be live so you can answer questions with us. Okay, panelists, we've got a first question. It really applies to each of you. So Barbara, if you could start, and then Roy and then Janice will just go down the line. But we've got a great question. Can panelists discuss opportunities and challenges with Z&E in existing commercial buildings? I'll remind folks that there's the 50% retrofit to make commercial buildings Z&E by 2030. And what do you see as the opportunities and challenges in reaching that goal? Have you heard concerns from businesses? Do you have concerns as a jurisdiction for cost? Any successes you want to share? Barbara, we'll start with you if you mind.
Oh, okay. I think the biggest challenge that's faced by the commercial development is just the cost of achieving that goal and how they would fund or finance that, particularly in Lancaster, where we were hit pretty heavily by the economy, and our commercial and industrial businesses, have really, some of them have really struggled to stay afloat and keep going. And I haven't heard of anything directly, but I think that with community choice aggregation, one of the benefits we will have is that we will be able to offer programs in the future that will help businesses to improve their energy efficiency and begin reaching that goal. And we had just launched our program in May, so we don't have specific programs identified, but that's certainly something that's on the radar and that we'll be working on over the next several years to develop.
Thank you so much. Roy, we'd love to hear from you related to Z&E retrofits for commercial buildings, and maybe this also applies a little bit to Z&E retrofits for municipal buildings, not just new construction, if you want to take it in that direction as well.
Okay, so with existing buildings, one of the main things is you got to figure out exactly how much energy you're using it, when you're using it, because once you can figure out those things, then you can start to tackle, is it my HVAC that's causing the problem? Is it the plug loads at the desks? Is it people's just bad behavior and leaving their lights on and that kind of stuff? So measuring is really, really important. I think with existing buildings, that's one of your first steps, is to start there. And once you've got it figured out and you've made whatever changes you could make, then you can also step into solar, or even better, is do both at the same time.
Great, thanks, Roy. That's I think, very sage advice. Janice, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I don't know that I really have anything different to add. I agree that cost is definitely a concern, and making the benefits and the costs clear kind of up front and showing case studies where things have worked, certain types of buildings maybe, a reference point where people could go to figure out what other businesses have done would be really helpful. We're going to continue to educate both our customers and our staff so they can answer questions about what the best steps are to get there. But other than that, I don't really have anything new to offer.
Thank you so much. I think the engagement piece is so important. I mean, working with industry, and your commercial building community to let them know that this is coming, and to prepare them and show them that it's feasible and really bring them along. I mean, that that takes a sustained outreach and education effort, and Chula Vista is certainly, I think, a great example of how to go about that. We're getting great questions, and keep them coming, and please know that if we don't get to your question today, we'll take it under advisement for how things that we should answer and address on a future webinar and with future resources. So send them in, and I'll go ahead and read our next question. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and take the first stab at this answer, and then I'll encourage our panelists to kick in their questions. So this is from a colleague joining us from the Mid-Atlantic, and he asks, are the net zero goals going to be performance-based or after occupancy, or just design-based during permitting? So at the beginning of the webinar, I provided the California Energy Commission's definition for Z&E, which is based on a Z&E code building. So that is a Z&E model based on permitting, not based on occupancy and operation. Does that mean that there won't, potentially be, a future goal of Z&E during operation in California? No. It just means right now our goals are really built in this state from the Energy Commission's definition on Z&E code that takes place during the model and permitting phase. I think we've heard from our panelists today that local governments are looking at Z&E beyond Z&E code, and City of Lancaster with the CCA is looking at how to go Z&E at the community level. So there are many opportunities to implement Z&E, but our regulatory system right now is at the permitting level. Anything panelists want to add? Okay, we'll go ahead and go to the next question. Okay, I think a really, really great question here that's going to apply to a lot of local governments that are maybe thinking about climate action plans or how you're going to meet the goals you've set out in your climate action plan. The question is, how would you advise a jurisdiction to tie Z&E to our carbon goals? We have a strong greenhouse gas reduction goal, and we could use this as a platform, and could we use this as a platform to promote Z&E? So, Janice, well, we'll go ahead and start with you and work back up to Barbara on the line.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so maybe you could move to one of the other guys because I'm still processing the question.
Sure. I know we're going a little rapid fire. So panelists, feel free to jump in on any advice for how to tie Z&E to carbon goals.
Well, this is Ryan Santa Barbara. So one thing we're doing with our utility management website is we put in the utility bills, and as every single bill comes in there every day, it's automatically updating our GHG emissions, so you can see them live all the time. We don't just do a sampling once a year, once a month. It's always live, our GHG stuff. So we somewhat can tie it to it, but that's the path we've taken so far.
And I would add that with community choice aggregation, you control your power supply, you control the type of power, and so you could. Can you hear me? Now we're unmuted. Okay.
Yes, now we can.
Okay. With community choice aggregation, you control the power supply coming to your customers, and you could select what type of power that you're procuring and using. And so you can really make an impact on reducing your greenhouse gases by selecting power that has no carbon footprint, solar, wind, other types of energies. You control that. And so, if your goal is really to make a difference there, community choice aggregation is really the way to manage that.
Great, thank you so much. We've got a question here related to financing and financing programs. I'll point this directly to you, Barbara, because you mentioned PACE in your presentation, but I'll encourage our other panelists to jump in after if they like. The question is, how did Lancaster overcome objections from the mortgage industry when it established PACE financing for renewable energy and energy efficiency improvements? I think maybe a little more broadly we can say, have you heard from the mortgage industry that they're at all displeased with PACE financing? And conversely, have you heard positive feedback?
This is Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We did not participate in the PACE programs until some of the issues were resolved. But since then, since we've been joining programs, we have not experienced any feedback negative from the mortgage industry.
That's great. Thank you. Our other panelists, feel free to chime in if you've heard, and maybe we'll open it up now beyond financing. But related to Z&E goals in general, what kind of feedback do you hear from industry, from folks who are your contractors, who are building residential buildings and are going to be really affected by these codes or by your goals, both residential and commercial? What kind of feedback do you hear? And I think it would be particularly valuable to hear about any negative feedback and how you've dealt with that and how you engage with it and address it.
This is Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yep.
With our pilot program that we did with KB Home, I think initially they were skeptical as to whether or not they could build a home that was zero net energy and have it be the cost of the construction and the price of the home be something that was marketable, and they found that is possible and it can be done. And with our programs and with each of our programs, we provide incentives to the builders to help them move forward in putting in those programs, but they're finding that it doesn't really significantly impact the cost of the home for construction, and they can still build at a reasonable cost and price a home that's marketable. Great,
thank you. And Janice and Roy, curious to hear your thoughts on this as well. What kind of feedback have you received, and when it's been negative, how are you addressing it?
Okay, I can start with the City of Chula Vista. We have several large developers. Our whole east side is fairly new, like within the last 20 years, and is still being built out now. And these developers are looking at building 1,000 homes at a time, and these requirements they see as just an added cost, added paperwork, added time. I think they appreciate that it's something better for the future, but they're still not clear despite all our education, which they don't necessarily attend. But despite all our education and outreach efforts, I think they're still not seeing the cost benefit. And so we have work to do on that end.
Thank you for sharing that. I think as the code cycles really ratchet down, and this latest one certainly has been a ratchet down and an adjustment, I would hope that sends a strong signal that it's time for folks in your communities who are in the building industry to get engaged and maybe take advantage of some of the education resources to ensure that they're in compliance with code. Roy, any thoughts from you about addressing negative feedback and getting engagement?
So this is not really my area, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, we've still got a lot of questions coming in. We've got a question that I think might have maybe some really diverse answers from folks joining, but I think is really applicable to many of the attendees, which is, are the panelists aware of any resources that are available for local governments to develop Z&E goals or hire staff to develop and implement Z&E goals? And maybe you guys have room for this in your budgets, or I think, Roy, you really provided a framework for how to approach Z&E goals, that are really lean and mean for folks who don't have those dedicated resources. But do you have suggestions for how to go out and get resources, for how to build partnerships and identify some of the funding that it takes?
So this is Roy. So we used a grant from Southern California Edison, and PG&E has some similar stuff. We will probably be using some grants from PG&E, but that's in California, so we have those. I would definitely check with your utility provider to see what types of grant fundings they have. There's stuff that comes from the PUC down through the utility companies, and those are ways to get funding to utilize that. And as we said before on the slide, I used NBI as the kind of like inspiring. I use ICF International to help us get the job done. But yeah, that's what we used. It was grant funding. Great,
thank you. I think that's going to be applicable across the country, whether it's through a utility or a third party. There are often ratepayer funds that could help you take leadership in these areas. Other panelists?
Okay, I actually brought in another staff person to help me answer some of these questions. He's got more information on the housing and the PACE financing side, and so he'd like to offer a few comments if that's okay.
Yeah, just PACE financing is a great way to leverage private sector financing and bring in money that local jurisdictions might not necessarily have to complete some of these projects.
Great, thank you so much. Certainly one way, as you said, to bring in that private capital. Barbara, anything you want to say from Lancaster? I know you mentioned some of your public-private partnerships, but maybe it would help to say, how did you guys go out and find those?
You mean find the partners to do the programs with?
Sure. How did you identify businesses, that either let them know that you were interested in bringing in funding, or go out and I guess find the funding and develop the partnerships with the private sector that has done some of these programs with you?
Well, I can tell you we haven't offered up funding. We've, all of our partnerships, like for example the KB home, BYD home, was all constructed with their own money. We did not put any city money in. So I don't want to think that the city has funded any of these private programs. But just our business-friendly environment has attracted businesses here that are developing solar. And then with that, it's made them, open to partnering us with different types of pilot programs. We have almost daily different developers that come out with ideas for battery storage, for how to use the street lights and do EV charging stations. So they see that we're open to being creative, that we are willing to be a research and development site, that we're willing to work with them to do pilot programs, and so they really are coming to us. And it's no money out of the city's pocket. We just provide either the approval process, the permitting, or the in the case of the battery storage, the facility to put it out, but it's been at their cost.
That's great. I think City of Lancaster has some really fantastic examples of leveraging public-private partnerships that the folks can learn more about in your case study, and can consider how they could embark on some public-private partnerships to leverage in outside funding to help them start projects. We're getting some questions about reach codes, and I want to let our attendees know that in the Z&E report, which is available at the link on your screen right now, we do provide examples of cities with reach codes. In fact, each of the steps on the roadmap has examples from local governments, mostly local governments in California, but how they're addressing and really embarking on each of these steps on the roadmap, including reach codes. So we'll point you there for those examples. And related to funding opportunities for local governments, it's still in its draft stage, but there's currently the AB 758 action plan for energy efficiency for existing buildings that the California Energy Commission has provided and is currently going through. There have been a series of workshops, and now it's going to be finalized. But there is the indication in the AB 758 action plan that there will be a local government challenge and funding opportunities for local governments in California to really take the lead on aggressive implementation of energy efficiency for existing buildings. And some of that could be applicable to ZNE and to applying for resources if you, in your local jurisdiction, want to become a leader in ZNE, either working through your municipal buildings and upgrades there, or engaging with your building community and driving ZNE in the market. So we'll point you to AB 758 draft action plan right now and the local government challenge section for more information, and really encourage you to stay tuned over the rest of this year as information about that becomes available. We'll leave it there. And if you have any questions about that action plan, we've been very engaged in that effort. We're very excited at the funding opportunity that it can provide to local government. So please feel free to email me directly if you have any questions about that. Looking through some of our great questions to see where we go next. So forgive the silence for a moment. Here's I'm going to adapt a question because we're getting it in a few different ways from different attendees. There's so much going on in this space, and so many, whether it's technological developments or regulatory developments, or just what's happening in the private sector. How do each of you and how do your staff stay engaged on what's going on with building codes and what's ZNE? What are some of the training resources that you take advantage of, and are there resources or strategies that you'd suggest for other local governments who maybe are short on time or resources, but really want to stay engaged and be leaders in this area?
So this is Roy from Santa Barbara. Utility companies, a lot of them have training. So SoCal Gas has a bunch of training down in LA. And Edison has some other stuff in, down in South also. They have a big training center. PG&E has a big training center up by San Francisco area. So there's a lot of stuff you can get straight from your utility companies and get great ideas from there. And also in our local government partnerships, we kind of pass ideas around amongst each other on what we're doing. So that's where we get a bunch of ideas and information from.
Great, thank you. Our other panelists?
Repeat the question.
Oh, I'll go ahead and repeat the question. But how do you and your staff stay engaged on the latest developments in this area, and what training or resources would you point other local jurisdictions to if they're short on time but really trying to stay engaged?
So this is the City of Chula Vista. I think since the question is really geared around, when you have limited resources and limited time, how do you get those really great bits of information? And I think that the best way that we've kind of got that consolidated or concise information is really networking with other local jurisdictions and seeing what programs are actually beneficial and working in their communities. There's a number of forums for this, but one that I'll just plug is the SEEK conference here in Sacramento this month. That's a great, that and other opportunities where local governments are getting together, and specifically energy staff. A lot of the staff can kind of talk eye to eye and see which programs are working very effectively, and you can get that in a simple conversation versus webinar, reading through resources and stuff like that. So I always encourage asking questions and reaching out to other staff, other cities that are doing goals that you want to do.
Great, thank you so much. Lancaster, anything you want to add?
There is a group out there, Lean Energy. It stands for Local Energy Aggregation Network, and they're a great resource for learning about community aggregation. They held a symposium about a week ago in Los Angeles to provide additional information to local agencies about community choice aggregation. There are a number of energy summits that folks can participate in. There's a California Energy Summit that was just recently held. I'm trying to see what is the group that was the one that spearheaded that. But, sometimes I can't point to just one, because once you start getting on, join one group, you just start getting emails from, you can spend almost your whole life going to different summits. This is such a current topic that there's just a lot of resources out there.
I would agree, and I think if you're referring to the recent CCA event, it was the LGSEC, or Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition, and for local governments in California, they're a very, very valuable resource, and I think a really great communication channel for staying engaged on different issues, and particularly staying engaged in what can be sometimes hectic regulatory environments. We've got a question specifically for Janice and for Chula Vista. Can you talk more about the feedback you've heard from developers and contractors on the impact of the workshop and the code coach? Any feedback from building department staff? And is the education reducing the number of errors or speeding up the permitting timeline?
So far, it has not sped anything up. There is a lot of paperwork out there, and what we're hearing from developers is that other cities aren't asking for it, and I'm not sure if that's just because they're not aware of all the requirements. Energy compliance forms, there's something for almost any kind of permit that you come in for that's energy related, So we're not sure why other cities aren't asking for this. We're trying to share information on what we're doing with them. We've updated our website. We've sent out links. We invite them to our trainings. The general feedback from our staff is that this is really helpful. It does help them do their reviews and feel like they're getting all the things they're supposed to be doing. I don't think it's quite reached out to all of our customers yet, but we're working on it.
I think that's really interesting that it sounds like it's been having that resource, available for some hours of the day on site for customers has actually been informative for staff. And I think while as we just discussed with training opportunities, there are so many different opportunities to go sit in a classroom and learn about codes. We recognize that many local governments don't have the staff resources to send folks out for 24 to for 1 to 2 days of all-day training on codes. And I think it's really interesting that just having somebody who can come in and be a resource, maybe for outward facing, also serves as a resource who's available in the workplace for local government building department staff who might not be able to get away to go to training. Okay, we'll go ahead and take a last call for questions at this time, and I'll also encourage our panelists, if there's anything you want to add that we haven't addressed today, your lines are open. So we welcome those last comments and send in your questions. And I'll remind folks that we'd really appreciate your feedback on that quick survey that you get as you leave, or you'll get your response email. We're going to keep doing work in this space, and we'd really hope to pull together a webinar based on the feedback and questions that we hear today So let us know what you want to learn more about, what resources can help you in no matter where you are, if you're at the trying to get a goal past stage or trying to get into implementation. Let us know what you're at and what you need to move to the next step, and we'll take that under advisement. So we'll welcome last comments from panelists. Anything you want to add?
This is Janice from Chula Vista. I appreciate you guys making this information available. I think it's great. The more we can get out to the general public and other cities, the better. We have learned a few things ourselves here that we're happy to share with other people. So if anyone wants to contact us through our website or to call us, that's great. We're happy to share, and we like hearing what other cities are doing that's working as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would echo her comments. You know, reach out to anyone here at Lancaster. We're happy to talk about what we're doing and how we did it. And I guess I would just say, take the first step. You know, take a little bite out of the apple. Don't try and take the whole apple. Find something small that you can do, that you can get completed and have success, and celebrate your small successes, because all of your small successes will add up to something rather big. We started with small little projects, and as you get confident and as your leadership gets confident that you can successfully do these projects, you'll be able to do more and more take on more and more challenging tasks.
Great, thank you. Roy, anything you wanna add to close us out?
So I just would say take advantage of your utility company. You know, they offer a lot of free training. Even with like Title 24, we get Southern California Edison will bring a trainer all the way up to our place as long as we have enough people to train our staff. So we get a free trainer, everything. They're just from Southern California Edison. You can get stuff from PG&E and SoCal Gas and other utility companies. So take advantage of them. They have the money and it's free, so do it.
Great, thank you. And as a reminder to that, you know, often trainings from utilities and programs are ratepayer funds. So those are, you know, those are in a way funded by your ratepayers and should help us meet all of our energy goals, and that's why they're in place. So thank you all so much for joining us today and for sharing your different experiences and best practices. I want to remind attendees that there are case studies that go with each of your presentations available on our website. We will be sending out a copy of this presentation later this week, and the slides and a recording of the webinar will also be available for download on our website in the next few days. So thank you to all of our great guest speakers and to all of our participants, and we look forward to hearing you and hope to have some future resources and be speaking with you again before too long. Thanks so much.